Today we are in Buile Park, Salford, UK. To see the local community greenhouse delivered by Growing Togetherness UK and the local community. Why is it in the UK people love greenhouses? Think of it this way: a house is your castle, a greenhouse is your sanctuary. So let's get cracking. For this project, the greenhouse was built using brick and block double skin, an aluminium glazing frame for the windows and the roof. Damp-proof course was applied to the back area of the blockwork so it would act as a tanking system and a retaining wall. The French doors were solid timber, including the frame. The key metrics for this job are very high because they came in on budget, they finished within the time frame, and the quality was very good.
So the idea of the greenhouse came when we set up as a community group during COVID. So if you remember way back to 2020, we kind of come together as a collective on site of the Friends of Buile Park, Incredible Edible Salford and Salford Croquet Group and the Salford Junior Park Run. And what we wanted was to create a space to welcome the community, that we can share our passions for the great outdoors of sports, sitting and chatting, having a drink, and growing our own food. So that's kind of where our group formed. And then lockdown happened. It was like, as a business idea to create a community hub, we were kind of knocked off at the knees. But after a couple of sleepless nights and scratching our heads, the board of directors that weren't actually formed then, the collective of people came together, worked with the council to gain permission for us to stay open. So as a community allotments growing food, we were allowed to continue to open the doors and welcome the volunteers on site, following very strict guidelines. We realised we were in a Grade 2 listed park with very strict building regulations. The land is owned by the council, so we needed to negotiate with the council whatever we did on the site. Couldn't be more than 4 metres high, so we pushed it up to 3.6. And we could be within 200 cubic metres of an enclosed environment. And we also had to be in keeping with what was on the site previously. So the site we chose was where the original bowling green pavilion was set.
I get a call, can you help me out? I'm trying to build this greenhouse. Where are you at? So I said, he gave me some information. I said, I'll come down and we'll sit down and we'll go through things. So we did that, realised that there were certain regulations under construction that weren't being followed. So I took on the role of principal designer to conform with what we call construction design management regulations, and developed the pre-construction information document that we could give out to the contractors so they understand what we've got to build, how we've got to build it, and where we've got to build it, what in. With the land that we had, which was quite steep banked, old land, and there was an old, basically a certain foundations, We had to strip those out, strip everything out. We came up with a double skin, strip foundations, double skin walls, blockwork up to 1 metre high, brickwork above, on the back, solid blockwork all the way up on the inside skin, and then brickwork on the outside skin going up. Blockwork because it's easier to tank, and with it being double skin, we were able to also form a retaining walls as well for the existing ground that we were going to backfill. We then looked at the glazing side, and we decided that instead of glazing, we'd go for safety glass all round. We didn't want to on the roof. We'd done the budgets, we got the costs, we got everything. We got the contractors on board for their costs, and even one of them donated the VAT because it was for a charity, so they paid the VAT, which was the ground workers. We were still waiting on formal permission from the council, and that put us back another 2-3 weeks because we didn't get that letter. Once we got it, it was full steam ahead.
For me was finding a professional that was able to communicate in our own language and give us the advice and guidance that could manage our expectations and aspirations to honestly say, yes, that's achievable, or no, that's not achievable, but where we can get the extra funds to help that happen.
So the good thing was having the planning permission waived. That was the first big decision that went well for us. The second was that the contractors that we got on board. They realised what we were trying to do, what we had to do, and they didn't muck about with the build. It was just fantastic cooperation. Then the frame came, the guys came, and although it was supposed to be a 3-day build, took about a week to 7, simply because of the weather and not being able to put the roof on in the heavy winds. But we got it there. We even got the doors and frames from a company in Southport. They built them for us. The frame actually acts as a lintel as well. That's why it's such a deep construction. And strong construction, which also enabled us to modify when the frame came in, and if we had to do, when the doors were that solid, that we were able to modify them as well.
We started digging out the foundations. We soon realised we had an underground stream, and I think having created a wildlife pond in the lower section of the allotments, and knowing that there was a historic villa called Springfield, I think having an idea that might be another spring around, was a high possibility. But that did kind of push the foundation builds right until the extreme. So when we dug everything out, we were lucky that we found solid clay to build on.
Yep.
We talked about having a French drain, and then the retaining walls either side have actually got 2 little water release channels in. So in exceptional flood, the water can come out into that. From a client's point of view, the best tip would be find the right professional you can work with that is on the same wavelength as you and is honest. And I think it can take you down that contractual route of explaining things to you. So for me, it's like I say, I've got blue sky aspirations, but I haven't got the knowledge of going through all the legal jargon.
A residential person wanted to do something, say, of this size, you don't have to do it in brick and block. It can be a full-size greenhouse. So it's employing a competent supplier and erector. Fair play to Mark, even built a little model so he could actually see for it himself, and we drew it on and coloured it in and everything else.
With my dyslexic mind and my creativity, I could actually close my eyes and just envisage what we wanted.
Yeah.
Planting style. So we've kind of gone with the permaculture style of growing. That you're looking at that symbiotic relationship between the plants. So we've got the corn at the back creating a structure that our melons and our cucumbers can then grow up, and we've got beans and peas in there to add nitrogen. We need to do the tiling, so we've got all the resources to do the tiling, but we need a professional tiler that's willing to come on board and help us with that. We're going to finish off the retaining wall so we can have a permanent bed inside the greenhouse that we can then plant into, rather than the pots with a water tray underneath. And then we want to make the access to the greenhouse better. So we have got narrow paths, the original paths that were here, but what we'd like to do is kind of make them slightly wider and level, so that we have got full wheelchair access, that then we can have some raised beds on there for wheelchair users to tend on the site as well. And with it being south facing, it's the perfect growing space. And even on a windy day, you can still feel we're protected a little bit by the trees. And we have got the fantastic groundwater, which keeps the plants watered as well. So yeah, my biggest aspiration is that we can find someone to help us with the subsystem to manage the water in this part of the bills, and then add that into the subsystem, which is a more natural form in the allotments, where we've got the wildlife ponds and we've got the willow coppice and the hazel coppice. And then that's the kind of big blue sky dream for here. But even bigger, you did say I like to dream big. In 2026, the park will be 150-year-old. So Seedley Park, opened in 1876, had quite a lot of grand features. So there was the lake at the bottom, there was the bowling green with a pavilion, there was an eye catcher which looked like a bandstand where the 1930s build is now. But for me, what I'd like to see, and this is coming from the rest of the park users, looking at all the historic pictures, is there was a fountain at the crossroads, and if we can somehow work the subsystem interlinking into the fountain, that would be a great way for us to manage the water on site in a sympathetic way to the historic site that we've got, but looking at a future of managing water on a site through climate change, which on the side of a hill you're going to have lots of water running through that park. So that's my big blue sky dream, is that, you know, this is a little part of a jigsaw of a bigger picture that can educate people.